Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching The Tangled Cat Speaks. It's been a bit since I podcast with you. I think it was mid-June the last time, so maybe about 6 weeks. It is now the end of July 31st, 2021, and I am coming to you from Rio Rancho, New Mexico, which is just outside of Albuquerque. This is mostly a knitting and crochet podcast. I talk about my yarn and the projects that I'm making with it. And I sometimes talk a little bit about life, but not a whole lot, so don't worry. I also talk about some of the books that I've been reading and maybe some of the shows on television or movies that I may have watched throughout the month. So that is all about me. Trying to decide. I'm looking around at all of the things I've got spread out in front of me. What should I start with first? So last time I was with you, I was showing you some, my mind just went blank. Some stuffies that I was making, some amigurumi for the Toad Hollow summer camp. It used to be their Tri-Wizard tournament that they do every summer, and it's 3 months, and each month is a different project. This year they've changed the name to Summer Camp, or Toad Hollow. I can't remember if it's Toad Hollow Summer Camp or Toad Hollow Camp. But it's Mary Beth and Helen from Toad Hollow Yarns, and they have a podcast, The Crafty Toads, here on YouTube. And so they've been doing this summer knit along kind of thing, and this year, instead of giving you a specific project each month, they were giving you a theme. And so the first one was stuffies, and I had showed you I was going to make some yetis for my great nephew and my 2 great nieces. I finished those and I sent them off immediately without even taking, I think I did actually, that's a lie. I did take a couple of pictures, but what I meant to say was I was going to podcast and show you, but I got so excited that I mailed them off. And then I never ended up getting around to the podcasting till now, so I don't have them to show you. So I meant to say that I am starting with whips, and I didn't even say that. I just went right into it. It's been a morning. So anyway, I did, look at my ends are showing. I'm already discombobulated. So anyway, the Yetis, the pattern is Yeti, spaghetti, and meatball. And I'll put the name of the pattern and the designer up here. The pattern comes with a pattern for the Yeti, and then also for a little companion for the Yeti, and it's called Meatball, and it's a little round shaped creature. And I didn't make the meatballs, I just did the Yetis. And I talked about the yarns the last time. They were all Toad Hollow colorways. It was Dread Pirate Henry was the green one, the purple one was Fish Footman, and the orangey peachy one was Into the Sunset. And I held them all together with a coordinating a coordinating mohair yarn from Knit Picks in the Aloft. So I will go ahead and put some pictures here. I did get a little video from my niece showing her giving the little ones their Yetis. They were super happy, so cute. So I was very, very excited that they loved them. And so those are my first whips. Let's see, what else? This is my next finished object, which is a shawl or wrap. And this is the Squid Dance wrap, and it's quite long. 80 something inches across, very, very long. And it is written for 3 colors of yarn, and I used all Pandia's Jewels yarn, and let's see, these are all on her snug base, and I'm going to put some pictures here because I did pair each yarn with a mohair. Two of them are Knit Picks Aloft, and one of them was a variegated mohair color that Pandia's Jewels did. And I'll put the pairings that I did here because each one was paired with a different mohair. But basically this is Brackett's Landing with, this was the carbon color from Knit Picks for the mohair. And lots of, it's blue with lots of little greens and brown speckles. And then this one also has blues and greens, but it favors more the lighter greens. And this one is the one I held with the multicolor. It was, I'm sorry, this one was called London Fog. This mohair was the one from Pandia's Jewels that was slightly variegated, kind of a grayish brown, grayish with browny, yellowy speckles. So it kind of lightened up the teal color, well, not teal, more like a minty green. Kind of toned that down a little bit, but you can see these colors go really well together. They both have some of the same colors, just in different proportions, so I thought they would look really good together. I bought all of these yarns at different times for random because, you know, they're beautiful. And they just kind of sat there, and they were never intended originally to be used together, but then I was looking for something because I really wanted to make this shawl. And so I decided to put them together. This third color is called Kelpie. It's like something with a K. Kelpie, and it's held together with an aloft mohair called Kenai. Now this is crochet. It's the Squid Dance Wrap. I'll put the name of the designer up here, but it is crochet, and it's knit on the bias, and you end up with this really pretty scallopy kind of edge on both sides, but that one's, if you notice, slants sort of towards my right, and this one slants towards my left, downward, and it's also got the scallopy edge. The top and bottom edges are flat, and I think it was called just for fingering. I decided to add the mohair because I really wanted to use some of it up. I had a ton of it, and I really like it. It did affect my gauge just a little bit, but that's okay. I love it. It's warm and snuggly, and it's fuzzy. I don't know if you could see the fuzzies. I love it. I love it. I love it. So that's that. That is my second finished object. I can't remember the the hook that I used. I want to say it was an F, but I'm not positive. I will put that up here. And I just use my old school boy needles. I love them. I've tried other needles, but I have been using those ones forever, and I love them. My hand is used to them. So that's what I use. I don't go for the fancy ones when it comes to my crochet hooks. This is my other, don't look at my ends. The other one, the ends were tucked in. This one I never got around to, but this is a very interesting shawl. It is called Lopsided, and I never know how to pronounce the designer's name, but to me it looks like Siu Clark, and I'll put that up here so you can see the spelling. But this is the Lopsided, and I love it. Okay, that's gonna annoy me. Is this the back or the front? It's the back. So you can see it's an asymmetrical shawl, and the center spine actually isn't in the center. It kind of goes diagonal, if you can see that, where it separates the garter from the mesh. And then down at the bottom, it just is, it's all garter, but that diagonal line still keeps going. I still have my stitch marker on here. This was one I got off of, it was, gosh, got this a long time ago off an Etsy shop. And it's just a little tree of life kind of thing. Had it forever. It's actually kind of starting to look dull, but I love it still. And I had it on there actually at this very point because when I blocked it, I didn't lay it flat to block it. I hung it. I have a big plain fence in the back. It's a wooden fence and it's just a lot of empty space. So I put a couple of nails in and I hung my shawl from it. And the stitch marker was to give that point just a little bit of weight. But other than that, it was all gravity that did this. And this is 6 different yarns, 5 of which were very small leftovers. I think the smallest one was 5 grams and everything else was around 20 grams. I think one was 15. And they were 6 different colors. And again, they weren't like a set. They were different leftovers from different projects, different brands. Let's see. I think I've got 1, 2, 3 of them are Pandia's Jewels. Let's see if you can even see where they differentiate. Some of them are very subtle. This gray here is Pandia's Jewels. They're all snug base, which is I think it's a 75-25 fingering weight. 75 merino and 25 nylon. This colorway is called Gray Pearl. And then down here you can see this, there's a little color here that has slightly brighter pink. That is, what are you doing? While I was podcasting.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. My daughter just walked in the door. So this one with the brighter pink speckles, that one is called Event Horizon. And then this color here is American Graffiti. Now this lighter color in between was, I don't remember how to say it, Hawari Bazaar. I'm not sure. I'm going to put the name up here. I'll put the names of all of them up there. But this is, what was the name? I just had it. I'll put it right here. But it's a lighter pink, so it kind of fell in between the 2 colors. So I didn't do an actual fade. I basically color blocked, but the colors are kind of similar enough that it looks like a fade. And then there's another one down here that I was actually going to use. I had talked about this on the last podcast. I was going to use this. You can go through if you want to. It's not going to show. I was going to use this as the bind off, but I decided not to. And I stuck it in there, and I think it works really well. And that one was a random mini that I had won a while back. Pandia's Jewels. Toad Hollow was doing a giveaway, and they were giving away a bunch of minis that weren't theirs. They were some that they had, and they were destashing kind of thing, and they were doing a giveaway. And I ended up with 6 of them, and they were doing them in bundles of 6. I won one of the 6. And they all had little labels on them, except that one must have fallen off at some point, so I don't know the name of it. But they all kind of fit in really well. Now this last color, this bright bubblegum pink, was actually some Bear Stroll yarn from Knit Picks that I dyed with food coloring a while back. Long while back. And I used 50 grams of that. I still have 50 grams left I'm going to use in something else. But I love it. Super light and airy, kind of, I mean, you can wear it as, you know, kerchief style, but I like to wear it mostly just over my shoulders, how I usually wear my shawls. And it's nice because it's light for the warm weather, like now, but it'll cover me for the most part and not have the sun beating too much on my shoulders. So there's that. Those are the only projects that I got done this past 6 weeks because I started a whole bunch of things and I didn't finish any of them. So let's go ahead and do that. Since I brought it up, let's talk about whips. I'm going to give you an update, just a quick flash. I'm going to flash you of my temperature shawl. I am caught up, surprisingly. And this is it so far. It's pretty big. You can see here's the end on my end of my hand, and it's well past my center line on my body. So by the time I'm done, it's gonna be longer than my wingspan, which is exactly what I wanted. And I'm pretty much, this is as wide as it's gonna get. So I'm done increasing. I'm starting on the decreasing now, so I can go back to the point, which makes me very happy. That means that my rows are getting shorter and shorter every time. But I'm loving it so far. Well, I mean, it's not going to change much on the downside. It's going to be the same colors, but I'm loving how they look. Now this section here is my hottest days. This particular yarn here was the color I chose for my hottest temperatures, and I didn't actually use as much as I thought. This color here, I was surprised that I'm using more of this, but we've been ended up kind of in a lot of the 90s, higher 90s. So that color shows up quite a bit. You can see. I thought I was actually going to use this one the most. Mother Nature surprised me. It was kind of funny though, because if you look, all of these are by very, very hot colors. Except for this random one here, this peach color. That is from the 60 temperature range, and the last time I used that was way back here. So we had all this big thing, and then we had that big heat wave, and then boom, it went cold for a day. Pretty crazy how Mother Nature is, but I'm loving it. That was more than a flash. That was a little bit of a ramble, but that is that. So that's the anniversary temperature shawl. And I think it's made by DeVry is the name of the designer, but I'll put that up here. The next two projects are actually kind of big because they're test knits, and they are both sleeveless tops. This one is more of a tank. She calls it a tunic. Her name just went right out of my head. She calls it the Misfit Tunic or the Misfit Tank. I think it's the Misfit Tunic on the pattern, but she has a hashtag for both. Misfit Tunic or Misfit Tank. Now this was meant to be for one color. Her original sample was like a variegated color. I didn't have enough of one color to make my size, so I decided to stripe it, and I used a speckled and a dark solid. I'm sorry, watch your eyes. This kind of looks like an optical illusion, just the way the speckles and the stripes are playing. Let me show you up close, because when I'm looking at it when I'm knitting, it looks like this, and it looks so pretty. This is the front half of the top. Now these colors, let's see, the first one, the dark color is from Sock Obsession Yarns. And this is a Super Wash Merino, Silk, and Yak. And that is the colorway name on top, C7H8N402, which I believe is the chemical name for chocolate. And then the variegated color, the speckly color, is Pandia's Jewels. I have a lot of her stuff. Let's see, here's the label, Pandia's Jewels. And this is called Festival of Lights. And there was 3 of them, so I picked them up. This is what it looks like in this game. And I decided when I paired these together, it didn't exactly occur to me until I started looking when I was winding it up. I just kind of picked them visually at first, but when I was winding them up, I'm like, Festival of Lights and chocolate. And that makes me think of here in Albuquerque, every winter, every December, we have what's called the River of Lights. It's at our botanical garden. They decorate the whole garden thing with statues that are all lit up, not statues, but like light sculptures, I guess. And a lot of it is, you know, there's one that looks like a big giant spider web and a big spider coming down. It's really cool. Weird because it's for Christmas time, but it's really cool. All of these bright colors, and you know, it kind of looks like this. Spiders, they have some underwater creatures, a lot of cool stuff, and I imagine it's because our botanical garden is part of a system of attractions, city attractions, botanical gardens, the aquarium, and the zoo. So they have a lot of animal stuff during the River of Lights, but it's so festive, so pretty, and then it's cold, so they always have little hot chocolate stands around the whole place when you're doing this little walkthrough tour thing. So I thought it worked out really cool. This is, and I didn't even show you, this is what it looks like in skein form, the chocolate. Super pretty. And I didn't tell you the base of this. This is 85% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And they look so pretty together. And I thought that this really is reminiscent of December's here in Albuquerque when you go to the River of Lights, because you're having she calls it Festival of the Lights, but to me, in my mind, that's the same thing. The lights and the chocolate. And it worked out, the pairing worked out really well on a couple of different levels. But back to the whip. So it's kind of hard to see because of the stripes and the speckles, but this half of the top has got all of these slip stitches running on a diagonal. I don't know if you could see it. It's really hard. I can see it better up close when I'm working on it, but from far away, they kind of get lost. But I'm loving it. It does look like kind of, my daughter said it reminds her of looking at all of these. It makes her eyes want to do weird things, and it makes her think of those, I think they're called magic eye books, where you're trying to look to see if there's something hidden in a 3D picture. So maybe I could hypnotize people with this. So this is the front. The back half is going to be 2 panels that are going to kind of crisscross to make a tank. Super excited. I'm really curious how that's going to work out with the stripes, because it's worked as short rows, and I know short rows, you don't always go to the full end. You're not going to the end of the row. So I think my short rows are going to look, or my stripes are going to look different in the short rows, because I'll still be working with one color before I get all the way to the end to switch. So I am very curious. I don't know how that's going to work out. I guess we'll find out. But I'm super excited. So that is the Misfit Tunic. And I will put her name up here because for some reason it's blanking. I think it's the Stitchin' Witch is her Instagram name, but I can't remember her name. But I'll put it up here. Sorry, my eye is itching. Allergies. Hold on. Oh. Okay. The next thing I'm working on is also a test knit, and it is also sleeveless. And I meant to mention that Misfit is being knit on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and that's I generally use my Chiaogu red lace, and this is the 4, which is the 3.5 millimeter. Oh goodness, no, I can't find it. Yeah, 3.5 millimeter US 4. The needle is empty right now because I haven't started my back panels yet. I'm going to be doing that today. So anyway, this is the next one I'm working on, and this is a design by Marina Skua. I have test knit for her before. You might remember the Boscular sweater that I did several months back. So this is knit bottom up. It's got split hem. You can see right there, there is her detail running up along the side of the body, up to the underarm, armpit area. It's on both sides. I just dropped a couple stitches. It's okay, they won't go anywhere if I'm very careful. I just have stitch markers here to help me count. And then it'll get to the armpit and it'll do the shaping here and the shaping here. I'm loving it, but it is knit on a, for my gauge, it is knit on a 2.75, which is a US 2. And while I'm enjoying it, it just seems to be taking forever because I feel like the small needle and the amount of stitches that I need for my size, because it is a bigger size, would generally be a 3X. So the stitch count and the small needle size is making it for slow progress, but I'm loving it. And look at this color. This is Pandia's Jewels again, and this is her Never More colorway on her snug base. There's that. This is what it looks like in skein form. You can see it is a slightly tonal, and in the skein it doesn't look all that dramatic, but when you put it into stitches, you can start to see it does do a little bit of pooling, like right in here. Let's see, there's another one. There's a spot that has like a really kind of a bigger blob, and it's very subtle. I don't mind pulling at all. If I want to avoid it, I can do or minimize. You can't really altogether get rid of pulling, but you can minimize it by alternating your skein. The way certain colors are dyed up, you almost can't completely eradicate the pulling. But you can see it like right here. There's a pretty significant spot here where it's pulling, and I like it. It's kind of a olivey khaki taupe color. Let's see if we can get a good up close. There we go. Look at that. So many different colors, but I like it because it's adding visual interest as I'm knitting during these long sections of stockinette. And it's awesome. This pattern is so nice because this is easily memorizable. It's an 8-row repeat, and after the first repeat I had it down, and it's very intuitive because you can look at your stitches and see exactly where you are and what your next row should be. And again, I use the stitch markers to help me count between the 8 repeats. Look, you can see where I dropped it. I got to be careful so I can pick those up. There's about 4 of them. I'm going to place it very gently over here. But I'm having a lot of fun. It's just feels, it's getting to the point now where I'm seeing progress, but for a while there I was like, oh, this isn't growing at all. But I was also working on other things here and there at first because I got excited. I had a whole lot of start-itis happening at the end of June. So I started a lot of things. I'm not going to show you all of them right now because that would take forever because I did start a lot. The last whip I am going to show you right now is crochet. My hook is stuck in the project and I don't want to snag anything by pulling it out. Got it. Okay. Now this is the second project in the Toad Hollow Summer Camp Knit Along. This is the July theme was market bags, and I decided to wing this one. It's crochet. I basically made it up super simple, easy. I did the bottom in a solid color or single color, and I just knit single crochet into a narrow rectangle as long as I thought I wanted the bag to be wide. So this created my width, and then I did like the granny square type stitch all the way around it without increasing. So that created the bag shape. So it'll have kind of a little bit of a flat bottom. When you set it down, that rectangle will open up and give you a little bit of space. Let's see. You can see. It'll give you a little bit of a bottom. And the colors, the yarn that I'm using is Hirschner's 2-ply Afghan yarn, which is kind of a like a sport weight, I think. I have used it as a fingering from time to time. It is a little bit heavier than a fingering, but I guess it's a sport weight, but it's lighter than your normal sport weight. And I have a ton of this. I got mesmerized by their website one day, years and years ago, and vowed that I was going to have one of every color. And I did get eventually one of almost every color, but they keep coming up with new colors, and I haven't been on their website in a long time. They probably have a lot more that I don't have. I know they also have some variegateds in this type of yarn, but I didn't want those. I wanted solids, and so I got a whole bunch, like a lot. I have 3 cubbies dedicated to just this yarn, but they are only single skeins of each color, and it was kind of hard to. Everything I was going to make with this was going to be radically wild and colorful. That's okay. I like that. But let's go ahead and talk about these colors. Let's see. Let's look at these labels. I don't know how out of date these labels might be because it's been years since I've bought them, but this is the brand, and I buy it directly from their website, and it is 100% acrylic. It doesn't squeak. I know some older acrylic squeaks. This one doesn't, and it even has a little bit of a fuzz to it, which I don't mind. I don't like the acrylic that looks shiny. So this one I like. It kind of looks a little bit like a rustic wool. It's definitely acrylic, but you know. So this particular color is called Plum. And then the blue, oh, this poor label. It's all mangled, but this is Midnight. And then the yellow is actually called True Gold. And this orangey color is called Honeysuckle. And then this is boring. It's called Light Teal. And then Leaf. And then the last one is called Light Coral. And I just chose randomly. I knew I wanted to use that blue. That blue was calling to me, but I didn't have a full skein of that one. I would say it had about 3/4. So I made the bottom, and I'm gonna do the handles. I don't know how I'm gonna do those yet. If they're gonna be short handles, you know, just for like to hang from your wrist kind of thing. If I'm gonna have enough for longer ones, I don't know. So this is about 12 inches across, and I am about 8 inches high right now. I've done, let's see, let's do the repeats. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was planning on doing 6 repeats, so I've got a little bit more to go. And this is going by rather quickly, considering that I'm only working on it every other week or so. Want to see something crazy? The ends. I haven't been tucking my ends in as I go, and I didn't want to think about it. So I had all of these ends dangling from where I changed colors, and I actually I think this is going to turn out kind of cool, but I started if you can even see it there's like a little braid right here of all my ends. I'm just braiding my ends together, kind of working it like a French braid. Like I pick up, like I have the 3 original strands, and then every time I go again, I pick up another strand as I go. So I've got this, it's kind of hard to see because it's wild, but it's on the inside, and I've got this little braid running up, and I'm making sure not to pull anything too tight so it doesn't pucker my fabric on the outside, and you can't even see the braid on the outside. But I'm just braiding them, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do at the end. Maybe I'll, I don't know, tie it off and somehow get it through to the front, maybe through one of these holes, and just have this weird dangly thing. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I just didn't feel like tucking in ends, so I thought I'm gonna braid them. Maybe I'll just leave it hidden in there like that. Bless you. It's okay. I am using, see, these are my boy, where's my camera? Jeez Louise. My boys. And this is the E. So what is that? I can't read it backwards. 3.5 millimeter. Now, back to what I was saying about the blue. I didn't have a full skein of that one, so I did the base. I'm going to do the straps, but I didn't mention this. All of these are double crochet except for the blues. I did those in singles. I wanted the blue in the color part of the bag, but I did them shorter, and you really can't tell a whole lot, but it's working out so far. It's using a little bit less yarn than the other rows, but I'm having a lot of fun. And let's see, there's 7 colors. So what that does with my color work striping is that the greens only line up every second repeat, like each color. So they're always going to be offset. If you kind of follow it up, there's a green here, but it's to the side still. So it kind of gives it a little bit more of a busier play of colors instead of having the greens always having, you know, certain colors always lining up on the same rows. They're offset every time you do a repeat, and I think that just makes it work out really good. I don't remember the numbers that I did. I just, like I said, I made this up on the fly. Just kind of going with it. But I like how that worked out. And I'm hoping I can end with a row of blue and then do my straps or handles. Now, part of me is debating whether or not I should line this. I'm not a sewist. I can do hand sewing if I am pressed for it, but I have some pillowcases that I don't use anymore. And I think that they would fit, one would fit really good in here as a liner, and that would do a couple of things. That would close up these holes, which I don't mind the holes if it's like a market bag or a yarn project bag. It's fine, but you know, needles would poke out, hooks might fall out. I would have to be sure that I secure those every time if I used this bag. But if I put in a pillowcase as a liner, one, I won't have to sew the liner myself. I just use a pillowcase and stitch it in to hold in place. And it'll close up those holes, and it would cover up whatever mess I've got going on in here. But I don't know. I might keep it as just like this. I think my daughter has decided that she wants this for her to take her snacks to work and stuff like that. We'll see. We'll see. If she really likes it, she could have it. It's not very big, but it's, you know, just the right size. I didn't want anything too big because then you start putting, you know, it's bigger. You're going to want to put more things. And because it's crochet, it's going to start sagging and pulling downward, and then the straps are going to be worthless because they're not going to be strong enough to hold everything you decided to shove into this. So I made it a little smaller on purpose. And that is the last of my whips. Well, the last of the whips that I'm showing you. Like I said, I went to town starting new things. I had reorganized all of my yarn, made everything look pretty in their little cubbies, and then I had my start-itis moment, and now it's all mangled again because I was pulling things out and trying to pair things because I still am trying to work as much as possible from my stash. I will say that a couple of things that I did start, and I didn't bring them here because I haven't really worked on them since I started them. There's not a whole lot to even see. But they are part of some knit-alongs. One is the Across the Pond knit-along. Little Monkeys and Me, Fernanda and Ruth from Ruth Loves to Knit are doing a knit-along called Across the Pond. And it's a shawl. It's just knit whatever shawl. There is a pattern called Across the Pond, but I'm not making that one. What I chose was the Nutra. And I'll have to put the name of the designer here, but it's funny because when I found that pattern, it turns out it's a mystery knit-along type of pattern. So it was released in Clues, and when I found it, they were already on Clue 4. So obviously I wasn't doing it for that knit-along. But I started working on that, and I think I'm barely starting Clue 2, and I haven't worked on it since because I really needed to get these test knits done. And then the other knit-along that I was doing is for, well, I'm still doing, I'm just doing it slower, is for Breaking Yarn. And Kaylee, she started a knit-along because her store is it a year old or is it 2 years old? I don't remember, but it's the Breaking Yarn birthday cow, and I chose to do well, again, this is one of those things that I decided I wanted to wing it, and I was gonna do the stipulations for her shawl, or for her knit-along, sorry, is to either use her yarn or her patterns, and I have a bunch of her yarn, and so I decided I was gonna try to make a shawl myself. I was going to design a shawl, and then as I was making it, I decided, well, it was going to be rectangle. And as I went along, I thought, you know what, my gauge is off. I meant it to be about 20 inches wide. It was going to be a long rectangle about 20 inches wide, and I realized that it was more closer to 30 once I got some significant progress on it, and I didn't want to rip all that out and start over. So I thought, well, I'm going to make a top. So that'll give me 60 inches across, or 60 inches around once I sew. I do a front and a back. And so that'll be a nice oversized top for me. I'm going to make it sleeveless. I figured I'm just going to make it boxy. I was going to do, I should have just brought it to show you because I'm talking so much about it. But anyway, so I'm just doing 2 rectangles, and then I'm going to sew up the sides, leave some armholes, and then seam the shoulders. And that's basically it. It'll be sort of a boat neck. And I'm using, I think, 7 or 8 different Breaking Yarn colors, and then some neutrals that I had from somebody else. I don't remember the names of the other ones, but I'll talk more about that next time, and hopefully I have a lot more progress done on that. But it was funny how that one worked out. I was going to make a shawl, and then I was like, no, let's make a top. You improvise as you go along. But I was having a lot of fun with those. But I had to put those to the wayside because I really need to get these test knits done. I think I have till the 12th of August. And especially the one, oh, and I never said the name of this one. I just realized that. And I probably by now, so after editing, have already put the name on the screen, but this is called Triopter by Marina Skua. But like I said, this one is being done on 2.75 millimeters, so I realized it was going really slow, so I needed to put some of the other things to the side. That is about it for all of my knitting. So let's talk about other things. TV. Um, Dang it. I got into Battlestar Galactica. I've never seen it before this past month. I've heard of it. It's older. It's from early 2000s. And there's 5 seasons. I never had seen it. I don't know why I was never really drawn to it. I remember watching the original series as a kid. Dating myself right now. But I remember enjoying it as a kid. But I never watched this kind of reboot series when it came out in the early 2000s. And I finally decided I'm going to jump in and do it. And I really enjoyed it. I binged it, and I would stay up late, like 3 o'clock in the morning, because I was like, one more episode. So I got through that rather quickly, really enjoyed it. I've been watching on Hulu a show called Alone, which is like a survival kind of competition show. Except, like on other ones, it's usually they're together. The people are together and have to survive together. And this one, it's called Alone because they have the 10 different contestants in the same general area, but they're separated by miles. In this harsh terrain. Oh my gosh, I can't remember where they are right now. Very much up north, Alaska. They were in northern Canada for a couple of seasons. But and they're not meant to find each other. They are supposed to. They go there and they're literally alone. And there isn't even a camera crew. What they have to do, part of the requirements of doing this, is they have to carry their own cameras. So they've got something, I don't know if it's actually a GoPro or something similar, but they have it to wear. And then they've got a tripod that they got to carry around with all this camera gear. And they have a little device that they can call for help if they need help. But if you call for help, you're out. And they have to deal, and they usually put them, like I said, they're way up north. And they usually put them out there right at the end of fall, just before winter hits, so they have enough time. They have barely enough time to get some sort of shelter set up, and before the snow and the bad weather comes, harsh winds, and then they got to deal with predators and also finding their own food, and scavengers stealing their food, and and then it's rough terrain. They could fall in a hole, slip on a rock, fall in the water, all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty dangerous in there. It's pretty wild. It's wild. They just, they take some big game down. This one dude just got a musk ox. He took down a musk ox with a bow and arrow. Like, I'm not a hunter. I don't care if that's what you want to do. That's great. I see the other side of it. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. But that's crazy. They're having to process these animals so that they can keep it and store it. I find it very intriguing, and I just keep watching, and it's just crazy. And then they're literally alone, and part of it is they have the skills to survive, but they're alone and they don't have anybody to share it with, or to talk to, or to vent, or to just have companionship. And a lot of them tap out after a while because they're just lonely. They miss their friends and family and children, and some of them, I'm just like, at the very end, I'm like, this person could have made it all the way, but they wanted to go home. So it's a very interesting premise to me. So I've been watching that. There was another show that I was going to tell you about. I don't remember. Probably a lie. It's a saying my mom used to say. If you said, if you were trying to tell her something and then you said, "Oh, I forgot," she would tell you, "Oh, it must have been a lie." I don't know why she would say that, but I've picked it up. Oh, it must have been a lie. Podcasts, knitting podcasts here on YouTube. I watch a ton, and I don't have any of the names written down because I'm lazy, and I didn't think to write any of those down. But some of the ones that I've been watching that are kind of new to me, I mentioned Ruth Loves to Knit and Little Monkeys and Me. They have their podcasts on YouTube. I've been watching those. I started watching Aro Knits, and there's Jonathan Days. I think he's in the UK. I think he's in England. I can't remember. Very soft spoken. And then let's see who else. There's a spinner one. I'll have to put the name up here. But it's about spinning. I don't spin. I've tried spindle spinning, but I just don't seem to pick that like I don't walk into my yarn room and say, oh, I'm gonna spin. I'd rather knit. It's more that I don't want to take the time to perfect something new to me. But I'm very intrigued by other people who spin, so I like watching them. And so I watch her. So those are some new ones that I've been watching. I have all my regular ones, and I'm blanking on them right now. Flame and Fiber podcast, not quite enough yarn, a Lefty Knitter podcast, and Selma Knits, Kia from Kia's Pod. There's a bunch of them. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. Hey Brownberry. Yeah, I can't think of the other ones. I should have written them down. Sorry. If I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been watching. Not a whole lot of movies. I really meant to go see A Quiet Place 2 in the theater, and we just never got around to it, and it's no longer in the theater, so bummed about that. I am waiting to see The Green Knight. I'm super excited about this. So actually, last night I started and finished the audiobook for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I'd never read that before, even though I love Arthurian, the Arthurian legend. I just never got around to reading that particular story, and it's not very long. The audio itself was only 2 hours, but I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of surprised. And it's funny because there are some things in it that, because like I said, I like the Arthurian saga, I like Merlin, and one of my favorite all-time TV shows is the show called Merlin, and it does kind of take its own spin on the whole saga. But listening to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, there were some elements in there, just little tiny things that I could see that they might have pulled and used in a certain episode or a certain characteristic of a character, or to build the characters. And it's not particularly the whole specific story, but just little elements. And because I know that show so well, I'm like, oh, look at that. That might have been their inspiration for that, and blah, blah, blah. I was super geeking out about it as I was listening to it, and I had a really good time. But it went really quick, so I'm all set. I finished that book, so I guess we've moved on to books. But I'm super excited for when that movie comes out, and I am gonna see it in the theater. Let's see. So let me talk about a few books that I've read. I did a lot. One of them was actually a series. I got into, for the first time, reading manga, which is basically Japanese comics. And the one that I read, I'm a little bit bummed now that I'm done with it, because there were 8 volumes, and each volume is about 200 pages. But because it's a manga, it's all illustration and, a little bit of dialogue here and there. So that even though it's 200 pages, I can read that entire volume in one day, in an hour. So there were 8 volumes in my library, the local library, and I was getting to the end and I was finishing, and I'm like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? How is this story going to play out? It ended abruptly because apparently I went and looked it up, and I should have looked this up beforehand, but I didn't. There are actually 14 volumes in this particular series, and they only released 8 in English in the US. So the other 6, I'm never gonna get to know the ending of the story. But anyway, I never mentioned the name. This is called Genju no Saiza. I'm hoping that's how it's pronounced because I don't know. But I read all 4 volumes in this last 6, or 4 volumes, all 8 volumes in this last 6 weeks. And I really enjoyed it. I'm bummed now that I don't get to finish the actual story, but I had a lot of fun. And it's leading me to want to read more manga. And the next one that I want to try is a lot darker. And it's based on Vikings, and it's called the Vinland Saga. So I'm going to try that. Probably not going to start that till later in the month, but it's on my to-do list. Let's see, I read the second book in the Prince of Nothing series by Scott Baker, and that was called The Warrior Prophet. A little dark. Understatement. It's very dark, and it's got a lot of negative sexual things in it, and there was some in the first book, but it's kind of a lot more in this book. And I would prefer more battles and violence and blood and gore as opposed to anything, I don't mind, the little bit of, it's going to happen if it's going to be these kinds of war and almost primitive type of situation, civilizations and things where it's kind of like a Game of Thrones. There's going to be negative things about sexual stuff going on there, but it just seemed like they really ramped that element up in the second book, and that kind of it brought the story down for me. Even though the overall story, I'm enjoying that particular element, they could have just cut back on it a little bit and I'd have been okay. But I'm still going to do the third book, which I believe is actually shorter. And that is on my list, and I'm going to be doing that one in audio just because I kind of got burned out on that other one, on the second one, and I'll be able to get through it faster if it's audio. I'm liking it, and I know there's actually more to that series. There was the original 3, and then there's another set of stories within the same world. But I don't think I'm going to read those because I'm not sure that I enjoy this particular author's style. Or maybe I don't enjoy that dark style. I don't know, I'm not really new, or I'm not really new. I am new to fantasy that's more dark. I'm used to Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia, stuff like that. So this stuff that's a little darker and heavier is new to me. And if it's, like I say, I don't mind blood and guts and violence and battles and stuff like that. And I get that sometimes, like I said, some of this sexual stuff is going to happen, but when it starts to feel just gratuitous, I don't want to do that. So I don't know if that's the whole style of the darker fantasy, or if it's this particular author. So I'm going to read some other things that I've heard is dark and just to see, but I think I'm done with this particular author, or at least this set of stories by this author. Maybe he has other things that are different, but I don't know. So I'm only going to do the first 3 in the original trilogy, and that's it. I read Sphere by Michael Crichton. Loved it. I've never read that. I remember that I had watched the movie, but I didn't remember anything about the movie. So it must have been nothing good enough to imprint in my brain. I just knew Dustin Hoffman. But for some reason, when I would think of Dustin Hoffman, my mind would bring up Outbreak. So after I read the book, I rewatched the movie, and I can see why it didn't stick in my brain, because it's not a good movie at all. Definitely not a good adaptation. But the book was awesome. I loved it. I was on the seat of my pants the whole time. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Let's see. I finished The Prince and the Pilgrim by Mary Stuart, which was the last in the Arthurian saga. Loved that, although it didn't really have a whole lot to do with Arthur or Merlin. It was a completely different character who was in that time and place. But I liked it. Let's see. And and I just read the other night J.R.R. Tolkien's Rover Random. Never read anything other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit by Tolkien. And I found that one and I was super excited because it's a very small book. It was less than 100 pages. And the cover had said something about a whale, the man in the moon, a dog, and a dragon. And I was like, well, I'm down for that. So I picked it up and I read it in one night and loved it. So had a really good time. So what am I going to read now for August? What I'm hoping to read. Like I mentioned, I'm going to do the last book in the Scott R. Baker series for The Prince of Nothing. The last book is called The Thousandfold Thought. And I'm going to do that on audio so I don't have that with me. But what I am also planning on reading is the next Michael Crichton in the list that we're doing at the once a month Michael Crichton thing. And that is going to be Jurassic Park. I read this when it first came out 8,000 years ago. Loved it. And of course, I know the movie backwards and forwards. So I'm excited to reread this one. Super, 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 super excited. I know I'm going to love it because I loved it then. Yay. And then this other one, so I'm telling you, the Michael Crichton monthly read-along kind of thing is through the Mike's book reviews that I've been watching. I mentioned him several times. But he also talks about all kinds of other books, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy. And he started reading some books by Blake Crouch, which had been described to him as similar to Michael Crichton. So that's why he decided to get into it, because he loves Michael Crichton. So I thought I would get into that. But he had mentioned, several months ago, that Blake Crouch, some of his books were made into a TV series called Wayward Pines. And I watched Wayward Pines and I liked it. It was very weird, but it ended kind of weird. Like, I feel like they meant to do more and it got canceled. I don't know the backstory on all of that, but he said that this was the author of the original books. And I thought, well, and because he's similar to Michael Crichton, I thought, I'm going to try it. So I got the first book in the series called Pines. So I kind of know what this is going to be about because I saw the TV series. But again, the adaptations are never the same as the actual book. So this is Pines. The second book is called Wayward. And then the third book is called Lost Town. But so far this month, I'm only committing to this one. I might have time to get into more, but this is the first one I'm doing. And it's basically about a town that doesn't exist. Like, they go into this town and for something they can't get out of it, and it doesn't seem to exist anywhere else. Very sci-fi, it was a very odd kind of show, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm really excited to see what the original story is about. Now, these other two books that I have here are books that I found in the little free libraries that are located. There's several of them located around my neighborhood. And I just go around. Often I have become addicted. I don't leave the house very often, but I have become addicted to going, now that the library is open, I go to the regular library, pick up some stuff, drop off some stuff, browse. But in between, and they also have a free cart where you can pick up all of these books for free to give away, just keep them. So I'll pick up a few of those and then I'll go like a little bee from each of these little free library boxes. It's called Little Free Library if you're not familiar. It's kind of an organization where you can register these little boxes that you build and then you put in books, and it's a take one, leave one kind of situation, kind of an honor system. So I've been going and leaving books, and sometimes I take a book or two. Sometimes I don't take any, but I like leaving things. So I'll get some things from the free cart for myself, but I'll also get some for the little libraries, and I'll go kind of pollinating each of those little things like a bee. And it's become addictive, and I find all of these things, and I'm learning to open my horizons to different genres. Let's see, I opened up my horizons with manga, which wasn't from the little free library. That was my regular library. But as far as horizons, one of these other things that I got is a Western. And this is called The Professionals. And this is by Frank. I don't know if you can read that. This is an old book. Frank O'Rourke. Apparently this was made into a movie back in the 60s. The book was written in 64. Or is copyrighted 64. Yeah. These old books crack me up. First, they smell old, and I kind of like that. But it's a Western, and this is set. I think, I don't know if it's set in Mexico or close to the border, but this mining baron, his wife gets kidnapped, and he hires some basically gunslingers to go save his wife. It looks pretty cool, and it's short, but the funny thing about these old books is they have ads right in the middle of them, and they're almost always cigarette ads. It's so weird. The cigarettes were just prominently displayed everywhere back in the day. It's crazy. It's terrible of them, but it's just odd. And I've seen other books like this. Usually the only other books that I've read that are this old and have the ads in them are the older gothic romance mysteries. It always makes me laugh when I see some random ad in the middle of my story, and it's 75% of the, maybe more like 85% of the time, it's cigarettes. It's very odd that the time back then, you know, strange. But I'm excited. It's a Western, and so far I just started it. I'm about 20 pages in, and I'm already invested. I'm having a good time with that. And then the last one that I'm for sure going to get through is this. It's called the Dragon Quintet, and it says edited by Marvin K. But I think there's 5 different, there's 5 different dragon short stories by 5 different authors. So there's Orson Scott Card, Tanith Lee, Elizabeth Moon, Mercedes Lackey, and Michael Swanwick. Now, I've heard of Tanith Lee, and I think I read a kid's book of hers, a short one, a long time ago. And I've definitely heard of Orson Scott Card, but I've never read anything by him. The other names I'm not familiar with. But I thought this would be cool as kind of an in-between thing, because it's not a very long book. It's 250 pages total with 5 short stories. So what is that, about 50 pages per story, very short each. So kind of a in-between kind of things, and in between some of the bigger books. And I'm also reading, I'm almost done. I'm about 80% done with another book called Orbital Cloud. And this is another stepping out of my genre comfort zone, because it's sci-fi, which I'm only into because of Michael Crichton, and now I'm going to try Blake Crouch. But this one is it's called Orbital Cloud by Taiyo Fujii, and it's sci-fi, but it's also it's different kind of sci-fi. This is kind of sci-fi light, and the other one, this is very technical, this one is set in 2020, so it's got today's technology as opposed to what was big technology in the 70s, 80s. So it's a very different style, and it's a big book. It's 520 pages. but I am zipping through that one really, really quickly. And my library only has the one book by this author. And I know that there's another book called Gene Mapper that I ordered used on Amazon so that I can read something else by this author, because I'm really, really, really enjoying it. So I'm waiting for that one to come in. That one's also going to be on my to-do list for August. So very super, super excited. So that is all I've got to talk about. And I rambled a lot, and I'm so sorry that was very discombobulated, more than usual. But I am what I am. So it'll probably be another month. I'm going to try to not go over a month. I hope that you have a wonderful month. I will see you at the end of August. Make time for things that you love. Make time for the people that you love. And I hope to see you again soon. Please like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of wonderful things. I hope to see you again. Bye.